If you drafted Brian Thomas Jr. last year, you know the insane value that can be found by rookie wide receivers. In fact, for the past few years, there's always been a rookie receiver finishing inside that top 24, whether it's looking back at Puka Nacua or Zay Flowers and Jaden Reed that year, whether it's looking at Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Ladd McConkey last year. It is clear that rookie receivers are a guaranteed way to find value in your fantasy teams because they're normally drafted way later than they should be. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. But I'm going to be running you through the rookie receivers that you need to be looking to draft and the people that you need to be looking to avoid. Some of that is going to be based off camp hype. Some of it is going to be based off ADP. Some of it is going to be about the specific role that they are going to be playing in their team. If you like content like this, please consider liking and subscribing. But let's get into it with the first receiver that I think you need to be smashing based off where he's drafted. Tetairoa McMillan, or T-Mac as he apparently likes to be called, is being drafted as the wide receiver 27 in redraft these leagues. Now, all the ADPs that you're going to be seeing come from an amalgamation of ADPs from Fantasy Pro, so it's from Underdog, Drafters, Sleeper, all the different websites that people will have been using. T-Mac was obviously drafted at 9th overall in this past draft, way higher than people thought he was going to end up going, but probably about the right range based off my rankings where I think he should have been. And he found the absolute perfect spot, and this is for a few different reasons. The first thing is the target volume in this offense. The target leaders last season were obviously Adam Thielen, who is 34 years old going into next season. Xavier Legette, Deontay Johnson also had a fair amount of targets before he was traded from the team, quite similar to Xavier Legette's final total, actually. But what they were really missing last year as the offense started to develop in the second half of the season was a true alpha receiver. And look, that's not just my opinion, that is the clear opinion of the Carolina Panthers general manager and head coach, because they went and drafted Tet McMillan 9th overall. So the target volume that McMillan is going to get is genuinely insane. Out of any of the rookie receivers, I think he has the clearest path to over 100 targets. In fact, I'd be surprised if he doesn't break about 120 if he can stay healthy, because this offense likes to pass the ball a lot, and he is the clear alpha wide receiver. And that comes on to the next thing, which is his skill set matchup with Bryce Young. And it would be completely fair enough if you don't know a huge amount about Bryce to think that he was a relatively shallow passer, that he didn't have a particularly live arm because he is obviously only 5'2". But what Bryce actually likes to do is to throw the ball down the field. If you look at his connection with the weapons at Alabama, you've seen that he has a really live arm, not to the true elite level of someone like a Josh Allen or a Justin Herbert, but he has a properly live arm and can make throws at all three levels of the field. Tet McMillan is going to help this so much. His frame as well, something Bryce can struggle with due to that size, is being able to see receivers open in the open field, but Tet's size will really help him be able to do that. The other thing which I think means that you have to be smashing Tet McMillan is the upside compared to his current ADP. Obviously, going at wide receiver 27, I think of any rookie wide receiver, he is the likeliest to finish the highest, and that could be as high up as a top 10 or top 12 finish. Now, if I were to guess, I'd say he probably settles at around the wide receiver 16 to 18 mark, just because this offense might not quite be good enough to get him to that level, and it does depend on Bryce Young taking a step up. But if you're getting him at wide receiver 27, and after a lot of receivers who I'm not 100% confident in, or who aren't the number one target on their teams, the upside of McMillan based off the ADP that you're drafting him at is genuinely insane. Going just 2 positions after him is Travis Hunter, and your risk tolerance is going to be the most important thing when it comes to drafting Travis Hunter, and it's the reason why I'm probably avoiding him in redraft this season. And hey, that means there's a chance that I could miss out on a potential league-winning wide receiver, because he absolutely has the talent to do so. The problem with Travis Hunter is going to be the potential risk of his role. We have seen throughout training camp that he has been basically splitting equal time between offense and defense. And if that's the way it's going to go in when he gets into the actual regular season, he's going to have to be hyper efficient and see a ridiculous target volume or targets per route run when he's on the field. Because if you're only seeing 50% of snaps or less on offense, you're going to have to be hyper efficient if you're going to be particularly fancy relevant. The other thing that I would say with Travis Hunter, which is a potential downside, is that I think his role on the team could change across the course of the season. If the Jags are feeling relatively strong at wide receiver, but they have a couple of injuries at cornerback, you could see that a potential star wide receiver is taken off the field to bring him in at corner. He is essentially a depth option at both spots, which means you can play him both ways when you have the opportunity to, but if they see some cornerback injuries, you can guarantee that your best corner is going to be on the field the majority of the time, and that is going to detract from his role on offense. I absolutely love the talent of Travis Hunter, and if he were a pure wide receiver, he'd probably have been my wide receiver one in this class. But it's crucial to remember that he isn't. He has so much risk compared to where you're drafting him right now. I know it's wide receiver 29, but that still might be going as your wide receiver 2 or 3 on your team. And can you afford to potentially lose them for the second half of the season, or have them be a much more boom-bust play? Travis Hunter is someone that I'm probably happier drafting in best ball than I am in a redraft league so that I can get those spike weeks. And I do firmly believe there are going to be huge spike weeks from him. But am I going to be confident putting him in my lineup every single week? Not based off where I'm drafting him right now. Emeka Egbuka going at wide receiver 49 is genuinely the steal of the summer, and if he carries on staying at that position, I'm going to have him on every single team. Egbuka was one of my favourite prospects in the draft just gone, being an incredibly fluid athlete, a technician as a route runner, and someone who is willing to put in the hard yards and block his arse off. But he is going under the radar because people still see him as the wide receiver 3 on this team, when actually I'm not sure it's going to shake out that way. This offense absolutely thrived last season, with Baker Mayfield finishing with the second highest passing yards and second highest passing touchdowns. And a lot of that came off the short game, the quick game in Liam Cohen's offense, which led to them having the third highest yak total in the NFL. This is an offense that has unbelievable passing volume, so I think they can sustain 3 weapons in this offense, particularly when compared to the current cost that you're paying to draft Emeka Egbuka. But that's all based off the fact that he could be the third option in this offense. When you have a look at the current recovery timeline for Chris Godwin, it doesn't look like he's going to be starting week 1. We don't know how much that's going to drag into the regular season, which means Egbuka could just not have the ability to start in 3 wide receiver sets, but to be the second option outside of Mike Evans. Although this team does like to play 3 wide receivers or 4 wide receivers on the field a fair amount. Emeka Egbuka is the level of talent that if he gets onto the field, he is not going to be taken off of it. People talk about Egbuka as more of a dynasty play and someone who's going to be replacing Chris Godwin in the next few years, but I don't think there's a reason why he can't replace Chris Godwin this season. He thrives out of the slot and should be able to take that starting slot role while Godwin is lacking in health. But I see no reason why he can't actually stay on the field and play out wide, or continue to take that starting slot work and Chris Godwin ends up being the player moved out wide. The other thing about this is the camp hype for Egbuka is genuinely off the scale. Anytime anyone from the Bucs staff is asked about their rookies, they talk about how ready Emeka Egbuka is. Baker Mayfield has said the same thing. Mike Evans has said the same thing. The Bucs are clearly enamored with this player, and he is going so under the radar because of a 30-year-old wide receiver who just broke his ankle last season. I don't think they're going to be able to keep Egbuka off the field, and particularly as a second half of the season play, I think this guy could end up being a league winner, and you need to be paying attention to him. If you're enjoying this video and you'd like to see more, please consider subscribing to the channel. There is so much more content coming your way as we ramp up towards the season. I've also got an incredible series that you need to be watching called Off the Wire, where I took a dynasty startup team, didn't draft a single player, and I'm now trying to turn that whole thing around. So click subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like. You will know all of the normal business that you have to do. But let's get into the other player that I don't think you should be drafting in redraft heading into next season. When we started the pre-draft process, Luther Burden was my wide receiver 2 in this class, and he's currently going as the wide receiver 55. So you'd think it would be someone that I'm in on at cost. But to be honest, I'm kind of happy to let other people take Luther Burden at this point in time. One of the main issues that we see from him is an uncertain role. There are a lot of weapons on this team. When you look at Colston Loveland, who the camp hype is absolutely loving, you look at DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, and it seems like anytime Ben Johnson talks about Rome Odunze, he describes him as an alpha wide receiver, someone who can see an incredible target volume and someone who is just dominating in training camp. And when you start to look at the different ways that the receivers could be used, it seems like Luther Burden might just be lacking a little bit. And it's kind of not clear what his role is going to end up being. I think in year one, Luther Burden may end up seeing a little bit of a gimmicky role in the offense, being used on perhaps jet sweeps or perhaps out of the backfield, but as a speedster and a deep threat and a yak threat, but not someone who's going to see consistent target volume in this offense. I think that's mostly going to be Rome Odunze and Colston Loveland. The other issue that we see for Luther Burden is that he was injured for the start of rookie minicamp, which can be potentially an issue as it takes a little bit longer for him to get up to speed. The other thing is that we've had camp reports of effort concerns, of lining up in the wrong place, of taking too long to get lined up. And I know we have to know when to actually listen to these camp rumors, but to me, it's a little bit of a concern when we had issues with Luther Burden's effort levels in college. So for me, in redraft this season, Burden is an avoid. It took a while for me to be in on Carl Williams, but now I am all the way in. He is currently going as the wide receiver 64, and that ADP took a little bit of time to settle. Towards the beginning of the offseason, he was going towards the back end of the 40s, and sometimes in the early 50s, which was the highest that a third-round rookie receiver had ever been going on Underdog. But now it's settled a little bit lower down. His cost is a lot easier to absorb. One of the most exciting things is the open depth chart ahead of us. We only have Stephon Diggs, who has a clear role in this offense, but the other wide receivers around him, whether it be Kendrick Bourne, Pop Douglas, or Kayshon Boutte, we don't entirely know how the depth chart is going to fall into place. But from the rumors that are starting to swirl from Patriots camp, it seems like he is going to be one of the starting wide receivers, at least in 3 wide receiver sets, probably in 2 wide receiver sets, with Pop Douglas stepping in as that starting slot receiver when they have 3 receivers on the field. The Patriots beat reporters can't stop talking about how much he is exploding through camp, and it seems like that connection with Drake May is starting to take place. Drake May, if you've been watching my content for a bit, is one of my favorite quarterback targets this offseason, both in redraft and in Dynasty, and I want anything attached to him. I think Josh McDaniels has shown an ability to run a fluid offense. I think he knows how he'll be able to use Carl Williams, and I think that connection between Williams and May is something you want to be in on early, because down the stretch, it wouldn't surprise me if Carl Williams ends up being the alpha receiver on this team, or maybe just the number 1 target if we're not going so far as to call him an alpha. But with Stephon Diggs actually still recovering from an ACL, even if the timeline makes it seem like he's going to start week 1, Williams is someone you need to be targeting to get consistent target volume in an offense that we want shares in. Jack Bech is currently going as the wide receiver 60, and hey, he was someone that I really liked in the pre-draft process, and someone that I wanted the Rams to target as a potential Cooper Kupp replacement, given how much we love wide receivers who can block. But the concerns that I have about him come down basically to the same point, and that's volume and ceiling. This offense actually now has a fair amount of weapons. Brock Bowers is going to be the alpha, and Jakobi Meyers was quietly a fantastic fancy wide receiver last season, but always goes under the radar. So if you want a little side note, if you've stuck around this long, draft Jakobi Meyers. Then Ashton Genty is going to get a fair amount of volume, both on the ground, but also through the air. He's a fantastic receiver. So Jack Bech's ceiling, his absolute ceiling, is the third option in this offense. I love Geno Smith, and I like the way they're going to go about playing offense, but do you really want to be drafting a 4th-round rookie, 3rd-round rookie? I think he was a 3rd-round rookie in the wide receiver 60 spot, who's going to be the 3rd option on their team, and on an offense that we probably don't want a huge amount of shares in. The other thing is that throughout camp, it seems like this team absolutely love Dante Thornton, the other rookie receiver that they drafted, and he is a deep threat. So if he can potentially outplay Jack Bech throughout camp, it seems like he may be able to be on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. The Raiders didn't trade Michael Mayer, so they still have Michael Mayer alongside Brock Bowers. There are going to be a lot of times that they want to have 2 tight ends on the field, especially when Bowers is able to split out wide and Michael Mayer is able to play that traditional inline tight end role. Jack Bech at wide receiver 60 is just a little bit unclear to me when we have Bowers and Myers who are going to get overwhelming target volume, and then they're talking about Dante Thornton as someone that they're really hyping up and could be someone that they really want to feature in this offense. Now, it might just be camp hype, and obviously Bech was drafted earlier, but to me, I just don't really see the upside right now of how he can be a difference maker in fantasy. He may get some consistent target volume, 4 to 6 targets a game, but a wide receiver 60, I want to be taking shots on people that I think can win me leagues down the stretch, and I just don't think Bech is going to be that right now.